Well, welcome back to the dinner table, friends. I'm so glad to have you here. And I'm also so glad to have my friend Lee McGinnis here with me today. Hi, Lee.
Hi, Aislynn.
Welcome to the dinner table.
Well, thank you.
We prepared for this a bit a while ago. I don't know what that means. A bit a while ago.
Been looking forward to it for a few weeks now.
Yeah. You and I had a really fun opportunity not too long ago. I did this weirdo thing where I just texted you and said, "Hey, do you want to go see Asteroid City with me?" You were probably like, "What?"
That was it was of all people that I'm friends with on Facebook. The last thing I expected was, want to go to a movie?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's like, sure, let's go. It's Asteroid City. Okay.
Wes Anderson.
Yeah.
I'm a huge fan of Wes Anderson. I have begun, just kind of reaching out to people, and just saying, there's things I like to do, and I don't necessarily want to do them by myself,
mhm.
And here's the deal. I can drag my mom or my dad or my parents to go do anything with me, but I'm a 44-year-old woman, so I'm trying
Yeah.
to
Oh, I understand it. I was enthused, especially when you said, let's go see Wes Anderson, because it's something I've never watched a Wes Anderson movie. I've never seen one from start to finish. I just know who he is. I know he's a fellow Texan,
Uh-huh.
but that was everybody's like, what? You haven't
Yeah.
seen Royal Tenenbaums?
Yeah.
You haven't seen,
Yeah.
Grand Budapest Hotel?
Yes.
Because I love Adrian Brody, and they're
Yeah.
like, you need to see it. I'm like, okay.
Moonlight Kingdom was one of my absolute favorites.
That's,
Budapest Hotel was fantastic as well. The Royal, all of those that you're naming, they're all like some of the best of them.
visually, he is a very unique director,
Uh-huh.
and I love what he does with the scenes.
Yeah.
It's little vignettes.
Yep.
We saw Asteroid City, and I highly recommend it.
Uh-huh.
It's kooky. Even if you haven't seen Wes Anderson movies before, you will laugh.
And as much as I didn't know this about you, but now that we've been chatting, I'm like, you have an interest in like space and rockets and just all kinds of interesting things like that. And so
my dad called it ambush education.
yeah.
He knew to keep a young man's mind, occupied.
Uh-huh.
He would take me places that I would learn about in school or I wouldn't.
Uh-huh.
And he would take me and teach me. I've been to Huntsville, Alabama. I've seen where, the rockets for NASA are built and where they're tested. I've been to Los Alamos, New Mexico. I've walked the same ground that Oppenheimer has, that strode. And matter of fact, I did that last March. I was in Los Alamos. But yeah, I was very happy that you reach out to me, and I was able to go with you because it was pleasant.
It was so much fun.
It surprised me how much I really liked that movie because, it has Bryan Cranston and, Jeff Goldblum and everybody in it. I was unaware of.
I loved that when we came out of the movie theater, like that was like a whole ream of A-list. And I was like, yep, that's Wes Anderson. That's how he does it.
Willem Dafoe.
Yeah.
Priceless.
Yeah.
It was great.
It was so much fun. I really enjoyed it. I would have to say Asteroid City will be one of my tops of his, one of my favorites of his. I love the color. I love the interesting, I don't even know how to explain it. The quirkiness of it.
It was kind of like a Norman Rockwell turned on his ear kind of quirkiness, because each little scene was a vignette, like a Saturday Evening Post, picture, but it had that Wes Anderson kick to it. And
one of my favorite things was the daughters that were like little witches, the little
oh yes,
like 3, 4, and 5-year-old girls that were like little witches.
Don't touch her. Don't touch her. That was very shining. I would be lying if I said it didn't disturb me just a little bit. I was like, those little girls.
I sometimes I wonder about me when I was that age, like, because I'm definitely a little bit creepy as a like strange girl my dad used to always talk about how we used to scare all my cousins with like spiders and stuff like that and like throw stuff on them. And so thinking about that and then watching, and I'm like, yeah, I think I was one of those creepy little girls that like was back then. They would say that I was a little bit more of a tomboy, but now I'm like, no, I think I was a little witchy. That's why.
Come play with us, Danny. Yeah, it's very much. But the little girls were hilarious. I liked the nerd kids.
Yes.
All their little projects, and it was just entertaining because I remember being awkward.
Uh-huh.
I'm still awkward,
Yeah.
but
All the best of us are.
yeah, I was like, I can appreciate where they're at and how they didn't belong with their families because they were so different than their parents.
Yeah.
But it was such a good movie. I will hold off passing judgment on all other Wes Anderson movies until I've watched more because I still haven't seen any of the other Wes Anderson movies to be able to say whether it's my favorite.
Okay, well, so then I was like, okay, we need to have like a movie hour or something like that where we just like watch some Wes Anderson movies, lock into Wes Anderson movies. But then also when we were there, we saw the preview for Oppenheimer, and everybody seems to want to see that. So that
It
was really good.
oh, uh, as a history geek and
Hmm.
somebody who loves World War II history and all the weird stuff that most people don't get taught about in school.
Yeah.
Actually, having been to Los Alamos National Labs and been to Los Alamos, New Mexico, and been to Alamogordo, the test range down there at White Sands, and seeing these things.
So I did this kind of with another friend too, and was like, "Hey, you want to go do something?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's go shark fishing." And I'm like, "I've never been shark fishing
Oh,
before."
more power to you. It's like, I
And
saw Jaws. We're good.
yeah, that's, I've heard that a few times. People that have like a straight up like not interested in
Yeah.
sharks.
And you told me you were surf fishing. You were
Yes.
not in a boat.
No.
You
We
were.
were, yeah. So
Uh-huh.
so I was actually in the water where the I wasn't expecting to see a shark that day, in all honesty, because it was super
No,
murky.
nobody ever does.
Yeah, so that's how it
famous,
works.
famous
That's
last
how it
words.
works.
Yeah.
That's the story I tell people about my leg, because I'm from the coast. So I'm like, what happened to your leg? I'm like, oh man, I was like a super surfer back when I was a kid. I got eaten by a shark. Well, no, actually, I ran over my leg with riding a
Yeah.
lawnmower because I'm a country kid. That's what I actually am.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Uh,
no, the water was real murky, so we went 6 miles out on Padre Island National Seashore, which
okay.
is not really that far actually,
No.
just a little ways down, and then it's here I am kind of hanging out in the surf. And I don't know anything about this whole experience. We didn't catch anything. We caught some hardhead catfish and
The state fish of Corpus Christi.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then some other kind of like whiting, I think I heard him say it was a whiting, and that was bait,
Mhm.
as I understand it. And so he's got the bait poles with the bait on it. And then at one point he takes a bigger catfish that he's hung up on this massive hook thing. And then he was telling me about how, they've redesigned the hooks and you're not allowed to use this kind of hook. You have to use this super rounded hook. And that's
Yeah.
because it gets stuck in their throats or
More
something like
humane.
that. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Now, how did y'all get the bait out? Did you cast it or did you?
Okay, well, so he was showing me, because he apparently has experience like fly fishing and casting, has a lot of experience with that
Yeah.
kind of stuff. So he was like showing me some kind of momentum cast and all kinds of demonstrations. Yeah, but then he actually took his kayak out, and so
Yeah.
he actually like took his kayak out and dropped it, and like went
Yeah.
out a couple of bars,
Yeah.
and dropped it out there. And then so he's looking back at me and he had told me, okay, you're gonna have to help me out here. He's like, it's not going to be horrible if you don't, but if you could just like tighten it up a little bit, tighten it up. And I'm like sitting there, this ADHD kid going, I am not going to do this right. Like I'm going to forget. And he's going to be halfway back and he'd be like, the line's going to be all crazy, whatever.
Oh, yeah. I
I,
remember. I remember back in the years ago when we used to go out to Bob Hall Pier to go fishing.
uh-huh.
You would see the shark fishermen
Uh-huh.
giving the bait to the surfers,
Uh-huh.
and some of the surfers would paddle the bait out and drop the bait.
That
And
makes
I'm like,
sense.
I had to ask my dad what they were doing because I didn't understand it. But
And then you're like, how does that make sense?
I'm terrified of deep water, so I'm not doing any of that. But yeah, you look like a seal,
uh-huh.
and you
Uh-huh.
now have bait
For a shark
for a shark
in your hand.
You are the biggest lure in the water
Yes,
right now.
exactly.
I was like, no,
Yeah.
yeah, that's oof.
I actually spoke about that, like, okay, because I grew up in the surf all my
Mhm.
life. Like I'm not a surfer, but I have surfed. I know the surf. I understand the tides. I even mostly understand what to do if I got into trouble. It's like, okay, you're going to end up on a bar far out, and then
Yeah.
you're going to wave at the Coast Guard when they come by to save you. Like,
You learn how to live on the coast.
right.
Yeah.
So I've had that experience with it or whatever. And, shuffling your feet along on certain days because you don't want to step on a stingray, watching out for the jellyfish.
Rest in
And,
peace, Steve Irwin.
but you also know that you are swimming with sharks
Yeah.
and 5-foot shark, and
Tiger sharks.
yeah, definitely.
Bonnet heads.
Yeah. Yeah.
Makos. No.
All of them.
Yeah. I remember we went on a school trip once. We went to Bob Hall Pier, and we were there, and SeaWorld had brought down a trailer.
Uh-huh.
And they were catching sharks off Bob Hall Pier and putting them in this mobile aquarium trailer.
Uh-huh.
And I'm almost 100% certain that's the day I decided I'm not going back in the water at Bob Hall Pier because of that. I was like, no. And
see, it doesn't I don't feel that. I know they're there. Like, I've kind of always known they're there. I do certainly. I'm a female, and there's certain times where we're a little extra hormonal. I do get a little paranoid when I go out during those times to just like potty in the water and then come back to the shore real quick.
Yeah.
I'm like, I'm not sure I want to be out here right now. But generally, I'm not afraid of them, and I don't. I mean, I try to. I try to believe that if I don't spend my energy being scared of something, that it doesn't come near me. Now, it doesn't mean I haven't had lawnmower accidents, right? But the other side of it is that I also know that you can prepare for the scariest thing that you have in your mind that could happen. And that won't be the thing that happens. It'll be this other thing that you didn't prepare for that will happen.
Yeah.
And that's life, right?
Exactly.
You can't buy enough insurance to solve all the problems of what you could run into.
But also, I'm not going to put myself in that situation.
But you're like, I'm not that guy though. So that one's not for me. Yeah.
I will spend that energy fearing it for the rest of my life. It's like, I'm not going into deep water. It's like, it was the whole submarine thing going to the Titanic. I was like, I know how that ended. I don't need to go. We're good.
That story about that submarine, man. That is. Have you seen Triangle of Sadness yet?
I know.
Okay, another movie you have to see is Triangle of Sadness, and it's about wealthy people that get a luxury yacht, and it's the whole story of what happens with them. And to prepare you, there are no sharks, but there is a really long vomiting and diarrhea scene, like a really.
I've lived that life before going out on the water, so yeah.
Well, you should definitely check that one out because this would be the time. Speaking of like prophetic kind of like movies and TV shows that are coming out, and then all of a sudden we're having like these things like didn't we just watch that in a movie? It's kind of like what I felt when I saw that happen with the submarine. I was like, I swear I just watched that movie.
Exactly. And whenever I learned more about it, I was like, ooh, we're good.
Yeah.
There's no chance. Whenever
What about a spaceship? Would you go up in Elon's spaceship?
Heck yes.
I see.
Heck yes. It's because if something happens, I'm not going to remember it. The upside is that, like, what is it? Catastrophic, implosion is like a millisecond.
Yeah.
Okay, fine. But it's a spaceship.
Yeah.
I want to be an astronaut. I mean, I've been a race.
See, we pick and choose our like fears.
I've been a race car driver. I've been a corrections officer. It's time to be an astronaut. And, coming from the generation that we are, when we witnessed the Challenger, still to this day, I'm like, yeah, I'd take a ride on that rocket. I was like, in a heartbit. But because I just like that. I like the G forces. I like that force against the body.
I'll do anything once. I'm that kid.
Exactly.
That might end my life, but hey, I went for a ride.
Yeah, exactly.
When you came in, I was like, okay, well, what kind of music do you want to listen to? You said goth country. And I was like, I thought to myself as I was turning on the music, what the hell is goth country? I was like, you know what? Let's turn on goth country. Let's see what this is about. I'm a fan of goth country. I had no idea.
More people actually know goth country than they think.
Yeah.
Because it's just one of those subgenre things. Like, I introduced you to the Dead South.
Yes. It was great, you guys. Listen to the Dead South.
And then you mentioned,
Devil Makes Three.
Devil Makes Three. And I was like Brown Bird. And then you've got a couple Texas musicians like Uncle Lucius and Amigo the Devil, which I would recommend Amigo the Devil. He has a funny, oh God, I don't know if I can actually say funny song. He has an interesting song about what would have happened if Jeffrey Dahmer left Wisconsin
Uh-huh.
and moved to LA.
Uh-huh.
And
Oh,
it's a song, and Dahmer Does Hollywood is the name of the song.
all right. All right.
And it's interesting, but it's got a really cool beat to it. And then you get halfway through before you start realizing what you're listening to.
Uh-huh.
And that happens, but when I listen to music, I'm like, oh, this has got a really cool beat.
Yeah.
And then you start listening to the words, and I'm like, yeah, we're not going to listen to this with their family around. But
Right.
yeah, I was introduced to it, from the wonderful world of the interwebs,
Uh-huh.
and they called it murder folk and goth country.
Interesting.
And that
So it's
was,
like what, like bluegrass, but
yeah,
like
it's got a
folk.
yeah, folk,
Uh-huh.
bluegrass, these mandolins, banjos,
So
stand-up
if you like
basses.
Trampled by Turtles, if
Oh,
you've
yes.
probably
Is it?
heard of Devil Makes Three, it's kind of in that same.
Yep.
Yeah.
Uh,
I heard a band called, I want to say they were called the Salters, and they were a van load of hippie stinky kids that would come down to the old school Lotus Cup
mhm.
days. Tango, when those of you that know of the Tango Tea Room or any, it was this super little hippie vibe in Corpus
Water
Christi.
Street
Probably
Village.
the
Yeah,
only
it's
real hippie vibe Corpus Christi's ever had. And the Salters would come down and play, and they played like almost like cult Christian music.
yeah, very very jars of clay.
Yeah, yeah, jars of clay.
It's stuff like that. It's like, I don't know why everything has to be labeled again.
Yes, yes, yes.
However, I remember it because it got a goofy name. But yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. It was one of those things that I was very happy to get introduced to.
Yeah, so I've been having a lot of great adventures this last week, and actually got back into cooking a few different meals. I had gotten a little bit lazy there for a little while, just kind of, I don't know, getting used to what single life is going to be like and feeding myself and all of that. But it seems like there's a lot more people kind of recircling back around in my life. And so I had decided I wanted to make some spring rolls. I had bought shrimp from HEB and bought way more shrimp than I needed because I'm still thinking like a mom of four,
Yeah.
feeding people. So I invited a friend over to make shrimp spring rolls. I've never made that before. I've now officially reintroduced rice because we had rice tonight,
Oh, yes.
and I had the rice paper rolls that you use for making the spring rolls. And then I cooked the shrimp. So all that stuff was ready. And then all we had to do was prep all the different vegetables. So I had some cabbage. I had the pretty purple onion from the garden or red onion from the garden. I had some carrots still from the garden. I cut up some different melons. We had figs. Trying to think of what else was all just different kinds of, peppers from the garden. So like sweet peppers, hot peppers, all the different things. And then we just stood there over the nice bar. You noticed
Yeah.
our, yeah.
So nice.
I have a perfect kitchen for having these types of things, for
Yeah.
having people over.
And I'm not gonna lie, I was a little upset whenever I saw that spring rolls was written down. I was like, she didn't say spring rolls. I'm excited. And then you just went into the conversation about how you made it for your other friend. And I'm like, what
I'm
do
gonna
I
have to
have
make
to
a
do
spring roll making party.
what do I have to do to rate getting spring rolls? I mean, it's shrimp spring rolls.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm very happy with the Bhindi Masala, but I saw spring rolls.
Yeah.
I'm like, all right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little fat boy in me. He's like, we're gonna have spring rolls and we're gonna have masala. This is everything I've always wanted.
Sorry.
Yeah,
I,
it's all
I
right.
have to tell you that I'm not like, this is the thing I noticed between me and the other person. Their spring rolls were perfect. Like they could go into spring roll making business. I mean, perfectly folded. Because have you ever done anything with the spring roll paper before?
The closest I've ever gotten is making a lumpia.
Okay. Well,
It's
so,
real
but you
thin.
fry it, right?
Yeah, they
After
fry
you,
that.
okay.
Yep.
So you dip it in water. It's this big sheet, right? You dip it in water and then you have to lay it down on like a wet towel
Mhm.
because it gets real sticky
Oh,
while you're making your
yeah,
stuff. And you don't want to, it's not like a burrito, you guys. You don't like stuff it and stuff it and stuff it.
I would make such a
Like
mess.
I made a huge
There's no
mess.
way. Yeah.
But the stuff is so sticky that you can kind of just make it work. So I just had these like ginormous, like burrito like rat, and he had these like perfectly folded sides, and it was all like neat and
Show off.
everything. I know.
Show off. Yeah. Mine probably would have looked like little rice paper trash
Yes,
bags at
yes,
the end of
that's
it.
kind
Just
of what mine looked like.
like, there you go.
But they tasted amazing.
Yeah.
I even made a so I can't do peanuts. Like that one I've discovered as I was reintroducing things, I learned that peanuts are a problem. So I can't make peanut sauce. So I made a different sauce that was basically like using the cocoa aminos that I use. And you also can use like tapioca starch, cassava
Mhm.
flour starch, or whatever. So any of the grain free
Yeah.
flours that I can use, and just stirred that up with some of the red wine vinegar that we used in our salad tonight. So
Tangy.
we had this, and then some of the heat. And then I actually used a lot of like the Thai chili spice in it, and
Mhm.
like Thai red curry, I think, in it.
Yeah.
It was a great little sauce. You can make sauces so easily, like your own recipe.
Was it more of a thicker,
It
like a
was thick.
creamier sauce,
Yep.
or
It was a little
love
thick,
that.
like peanut sauce.
That's one of the things I'm not a big fan of whenever I go to an Asian restaurant or something, is like, I don't like soy sauce.
Oh, right.
It's not because I don't like the flavor.
It's thin.
I need it to stick.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
is, and I have an allergy. I have a small allergy to peanuts,
Okay.
so I
So
can't,
have peanut sauce.
but I'll put some peanut sauce on my Boon Bowl from Houdat. You
Nice.
can bet there's gonna be peanuts on that. But yeah, I gotta have a thick sauce. It's got,
Yeah.
and the spicier the better.
Yeah.
If I'm not sweating under my
You would have
eyes,
liked this one then.
oh,
Yeah.
I
So
would.
then you take that, and it's got all this like it's got this shrimp, right? Oh, and the shrimp that I got from HEB were really good shrimp. Like
So it's good size shrimp.
they were nice.
Grew up in the Bluff. People have bait snails. That's so what you're telling me is that I missed really good spring rolls that
Uh-huh.
you made with a fantastic sauce,
Sauce that didn't have peanuts in it.
and I wasn't invited.
Next time. I
Okay.
promise.
I
I'm
mean,
making a lot of promises, by the way. I've noticed in the podcast world, there's like all these people waiting for their next invitation.
yeah.
And we were talking about it today, and I've talked about it enough. Like, I feel like I need to have just a dinner party. I don't know if it'll actually end up in a podcast, but it'll be fun to get all our friends together and have a nice dinner party and
Yeah.
cook like all kinds of interesting things.
The
Or,
best of not eaten.
oh, yeah.
It's like, oh, you didn't get to have this. This was for
Ha ha.
the customer. Yeah.
So then we did another thing where we went by Natural Grocers last night and picked up this meat. It's a Force of Nature ancestral blend bison from Georgia, and it has liver and heart in it. And so we made a hash out of that. And the hash that we made, it was with a tromboncino squash, which I had like a half a tromboncino in my refrigerator that I needed to use. And everybody knows about the tromboncino because I talk about that all the time.
That's the only reason I knew what you were talking about. I was
Yeah.
like, she started using words I know.
Yeah.
I know what that vegetable is because she's mentioned it almost every week.
I'm the tromboncino lobbyist.
That and figs.
Yeah. Yeah. If I grow it, Roselle, everybody knows about Roselle too. If I grow it, I'll tell you how to use it. The tromboncino with this blended ancestral blend, and it, like I said, it's Force of Nature. So they're a regenerative farm out of Georgia. And then it also was the cabbage that was left over that we had made, and some of the fresh onions. And it was a super, the one pot. You said your dad called it the cowboy dish.
Yeah.
You like, that makes perfect sense to me because my uncle, who was a cowboy, but also was a welder and welded all over the country.
Mhm.
He's the one that taught me about almost the one pot. Yeah.
Cowboy cooking. It's
Uh-huh.
like you open the fridge. I was like, My dad would either say it was cowboy cooking or it was poking grits.
Uh-huh.
I was like, what's for dinner? Poking grits, boy.
What's that?
You poke your feet under the table and grit your teeth. Have no idea.
Yeah, I don't know.
Dad was from the Ozarks. I have no idea, but since I was a kid, poking grits. If you ask him, poking grits. He's like, you'll get fed what you get fed. But if you ask him, poking grits.
If you sit around my house long enough, you will hear some really probably inappropriate catchphrases of
Oh, yeah.
Southern catchphrases we probably shouldn't be saying anymore, but we're still saying.
Oh, yeah.
My grandmother was like, I don't know if I want to say the word worst, but she said all kinds of things all the time. Like the one that comes to my mind right now that's so beautifully inappropriate, sweating like a whore in church. She
Oh,
used
yeah.
to always say that all the
Yeah.
time.
That has been uttered around my house. It was along the lines of the nervous as a cat in a a long tailed cat in a room full of rocking chairs, or
That. Yeah.
crazier than a stump full of bastard owls, or nuttier than a squirrel turd, or
Yeah, that.
those things.
My family's like that.
Yeah, it's I got
Bigger than a goat's ass.
shining like a diamond in a goat's ass, which I never understood. But my dad was 30 years in the Navy, but he grew up in the Ozarks, and so we got a nice blend of Sailor Jerry and Bubba Ray, and so
Mountain Man.
Yeah, it was interesting because he would pick these things up, and then he would just kind of pick and choose what he wanted to add, and so you never knew what was going to happen. But nothing was off limits. But he definitely had some interesting phrases that he would turn on us.
Well, you didn't get any of the wine tonight because you brought the drink tonight.
Yes, I brought mead.
You brought mead, and it was great, by the way, which we'll have to have a sip of. You brought 2 varieties, and then I pulled out 2 because we have beehive here, so they had given me some mead back in October. We'll have to, after we jump off the podcast here in a little bit, we'll have to have the after dinner drink will be the one that you made with coffee in it.
That's the
or the one that was made with coffee in
Java Hala. It's the one that we had beforehand, which was our starter, which was the Skull, which was a hibiscus lavender mead with currant and maple syrup, I believe was in there, along with locally sourced honey from Sandia, Texas. My friends had some beehives. So Lost Oaks on the Oasis was there.
I remember them. They came to the farmer's market a few times.
Yeah, that it was the honey from theirs. It was wildflower honey, and the Java Hala is actually made with a mesquite honey. So it was a little bit darker to start with.
Yeah, and
then with coffee, for the life of me, I can't remember what coffee I gave my buddy Mike to use, but I'm looking forward to it.
Well, of the 3 that we drank, so we drank the one you brought first, which was the lavender hibiscus one, and then we drank 2 versions. I don't remember what they told me they were made with, but 2 of the versions from my friends, and they're actually going to be on the podcast next week, as a matter of fact.
Fantastic.
That's fun timing. I actually liked the one that I really liked it a lot. I thought it was really good.
Yeah. I mean, it's not something a lot of people are used to with mead, but I know with your natural and your healthy, what you're going for and what you can and can't drink. I'm like, there's nothing more organic than locally sourced honey and then yeast and water.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, my friend Mike, one of my customers from the cafe, made these for me. I provided the honey and he made the mead and would bring it. So I was like, and I told you when we went and saw the movie, I was like, I have some mead. You're like, bring it. I was like, okay, I can do that for you.
Yes.
But I'm glad you liked it. It was a little sweet.
Yeah.
But the other 2 that your other friends that have the hives out here, those were, I mean, super clean and crisp.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, it's honey water, and it's dangerous.
Because
it's the one I brought does have a little bit of a punch to it, but those were it's just like nectar. I'll drink a bottle of that in a heartbeat.
Yeah. And we had to taste it next to, while we were preparing, you cut up all of our okra for us.
Yes.
So we made a Bhindi Masala tonight, which for you Southern folks, that's okra and tomatoes with Indian flavored seasonings in it, basically.
Yeah. It was fantastic. I loved the different varieties of okra that you provided. I was commenting on the cross section of some of the okra. It looked like a star fruit. And it was visually. I
think actually the closest hybrid, mine is a hybrid because I grow all my stuff and then I let the seeds grow. And almost every year I'm going to end up with that same looking from the reseeds. I'm going to end up with that same variety. And it's a mixture because I grow burgundy okra. I grow the long spineless one. And then I've grown a hill country version of one and then one called Star of David. And so I think it's the one that I can call the closest variety to what the hybrid is that Star of David.
And you did such a good job when you cooked it because it didn't get
gooey.
It still had a little bit of bite to it. It was, had a good flavor. And how close are the peppers that you grow to the okra?
They're around.
Okay.
Was it hot when you tasted it before?
I could smell it.
Oh, yeah.
I could, whenever you saw me when I was cutting it, I picked a couple pieces up and I kind of smelled it.
Yeah.
Because I could smell peppers. I could smell chilies, and I'm like,
nice.
It's just it takes on some of what you grow it around, but it was such a good dish, and the flavors worked so well together.
I've gotten to the point where I don't really tell the guests, unless some guests have like they want to come cook something for
Hmm.
me. But I don't usually tell people what I'm cooking because I cook. I
Hmm.
will sometimes ask like, are you okay with meat, or like or someone like me would say I don't eat meat, or I need whatever, and they'll tell me something, and so then we'll switch it up. But generally, so, and I know a lot of people don't like okra, so I didn't even ask. I was just like, we're making Bhindi Masala.
It was so good. Whenever you told me what we were making, I actually looked it up because I've had tikka masala and
Uh-huh.
the general stuff that most people are familiar with. But I looked at it, and I didn't tell you this, but my dad had tried to grow a little hobby garden out in the bluff whenever I was growing up. And that's when my love of okra started, because he couldn't grow anything except okra.
Of course. Yeah.
It was just, it was okra. And
Uh-huh.
so we had lots of, and I love Cajun food. I love
Uh-huh.
anything with okra,
I love okra too.
but
It's one of my
it
favorites.
was, I mean, it was done so well. It
Yay.
was done so well.
So it was a pound and a half of really pretty okra. We used tomato paste. I also wanted to add in some fresh tomatoes, so we cut up some of my fresh tomatoes coming out of the garden. One of my fresh onions. We used ginger, garlic. It called for corn oil. I'm not using corn oil, so I used olive oil instead. It called for Kashmiri red chili powder. Instead, I used some of my hot red chili. Didn't put a bunch in it. It had a tiny bit of spice, but not much at all.
It was perfect. It was slow. It was just a slow little simmer on the back of the tongue.
Nice.
It was great.
Turmeric powder, garam masala. It also called for fenugreek leaves, which I think were actually for like a topping, a dressing
Yeah.
topping. The cilantro as well. I didn't have either one of those, so I didn't put those in. But I used it called for a vegan yogurt. I used coconut yogurt. You guys know I'm using that.
Mhm.
And then cumin powder, coriander powder. The coriander powder was fresh from my own coriander that I harvest.
The
And
smell was fantastic.
yeah, it was really nice.
It was so nice.
Yeah, super easy to cook, you guys. The longest part of it was prepping and cutting things up. And so otherwise, it was really pretty easy for us to make tonight.
The longest part of it was me making sure I ended prep with the same number of fingers I started prep with, because you let me have a knife.
You were quite
And
meticulous, I noticed.
yeah, I'm
seeing you at the coffee shop and just chatting up with you or whatever, that our common interest was like road tripping and hiking. And so as we came out of the Asteroid City movie, I wanted to show you that I'd been building out the back of my truck so that I can go on this long road trip that I'm going on. So on August 1st, I'm traveling from Corpus Christi, Texas, round trip all the way to Michigan and then back, and I'm doing it in 14 days. And so as soon as I started telling you that story, you were like, oh my gosh, I've got to tell you everything. And
well, what you're doing to the back of your truck and what your father has done with the build out is
yeah.
fantastic. I mean, I've slept in some cars,
Uh-huh.
but that's a pretty cool setup that you've got going on over there.
Yeah.
And I mean, I imagine after 14 days, you're going to be tired of it.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
However, I mean, it's a camper without a camper.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
Well, what happened one day was I kept saying, like, I just need a van so that I can go get on the road. And then I kept saying, I'm going to go to Michigan, because I was talking to my friend Jess about, I was like, oh, I guess I'll just go on a road trip around Texas. And she's like, you need to go up there where Tommy, my friend Tommy, that comes down in the wintertime.
Yeah.
She's from Michigan. You need to go where Tommy's at. And I was like, okay. And I mentioned to my dad, I'm going to Michigan in my van. Cause he had already said, well, your Yukon, you don't need a van. You've got a Yukon, like same thing, whatever. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to Michigan. And he's like, you need to find somebody to go with you. And I'm like, no, I'm going to Michigan. So then I kind of put it in the back burner and just kind of let it float around. And then a few days later, I went and I sat down and I looked at him and I said, I'm going to Michigan. And he goes, you don't need my permission. And I was like, thank you, Dad.
Exactly.
So he's building out the back for me, or he already built out the back for me. It's got a little bitty platform on the bottom that just kind of makes it nice, and it's kind of carpeted or whatever. And then a box that is turned into basically like a personal locker that's got a lid. So I'm going to store like my clothes and things that can be like hidden away. And I don't want to accidentally get wet or knocked out or, anything like that. Yeah.
It looks pretty cool.
So it's got that, and then it's got a place where I can slide in a table. It's perfectly like measured, so he's got a table that fits perfectly down inside there. And then it's also got this wall built up where it's kind of got a little storage cubby to where I can kind of just shove some stuff back. And then the Reflectix on the windows, that's already gone up. And then I'm getting some more window shades for the front part. I'm getting 18-inch. I think you can get them at like Home Depot. Everybody knows them. They're the black storage containers with the yellow lids.
Yeah.
The 18-inch ones. I can fit 4 of those nicely down the side. So I've got like a utility box, a kitchen box, a pantry box, and then probably like a shower box, like a bathroom shower, kind of like each thing that I need in there. Then I can slide 2 or 3 nice size ice chests in, place for the dog, up there in the front,
Yeah.
so I'm kind of trying to make a list of all the different things. But then as I started talking to you and pretty much everybody else, it's like, okay, well, how are you going to go about this? Where are you stopping at? So the plan is it's Austin, Dallas, and then Arkansas. And so I'm staying in like a hip camp type place in Arkansas up near Bentonville, which I've never been to Bentonville, but I think I'll be able to make it through Bentonville.
Love Bentonville. That's,
Yeah.
I mean, that's the home of Walmart. It's also the home of Onyx Coffee Labs.
I was going to ask you, where are all the best coffee places along my route here?
Onyx Coffee Labs. If you're going through Bentonville, you stop at Onyx Coffee Labs.
Okay.
Andrea, she's one of the owners, one of the founders. She competes in the United States Coffee Championships every year. They have fantastic. I mean, they source their own
Onyx
coffee.
Coffee Labs.
Yeah, I'll send you the.
Okay.
Because it's right in downtown Bentonville. The one I go to, it's like their flagship store. But
nice.
I recommend Onyx Coffee Labs for one, they're my friends, and 2, fantastic coffee.
Love it. That's the kind of stuff I'm looking for, is like just these little spots that you like stop along the way. And I don't really have any like major plan. The biggest major plan I have, of course, is making sure I have a place to sleep each night. Not that it's not necessarily a bed, because my bed's in the back of my car some of the nights, but just a place where my car can safely park. Female on the road that's never done anything like this before. I'm paying most places, state parks, hip camp, that kind of thing, trying to stay in places that I know I'll be safe. I'm stopping at Baker Creek Heirloom when I go through Missouri. That's on the map.
Can I say it now?
Yes.
Are you going to stop in Uranus?
Only if you're going to let me stop in Uranus.
Such a good stop.
What?
Yeah, Uranus, Missouri. It's
I hear you can get the best fudge in Uranus.
The best fudge comes from Uranus. They have shirts. They have shirts and everything you can possibly want. It's on Old Route 66 between St. Louis and Springfield. It is not.
I'm going to stop in Uranus.
You can't miss it. It's must see.
Okay.
But yes, it's a fun little stop. The puns, they know what they have.
Of course.
And they have built so much around it. I'm a kid. It's a giant fart joke. And that's what that stop is. They have a sideshow museum there. They have like the world's largest frying pan is there. And
nice.
Then they have the gift shop where you can get all the straight out of Uranus shirts. It's like straight out of Compton. They have the straight out of Uranus shirts.
Love it.
I took my family to Branson for spring break 2 years ago, and I drove 3.5 hours just to go there. I saw it on the Travel Channel, and I was like, we're going to go, because we were going to Springfield anyways, because my father and family is from the Springfield area, Ozark and all that. And so I was like, it's halfway between here and St. Louis. We have to go. And they literally thought I was lying to them. They did not think this was a real place until we got to the first sign that said Uranus 4 miles ahead. And then when we pulled in, and I told them, I was like, I was a kid in a candy store. Literally, there's a candy store in there. And it is the Uranus Fudge Factory.
Love it.
And it's good fudge. Not lying. It's good fudge. But it's just for the stop.
I'm just enjoying the idea of being on the road. My mom says that I've been dreaming about being on the road all my life, and then just being able to pull off and see whatever. And I mean, I always had that freedom, but when you're on your own, it's just like a completely different kind of freedom to just
the windshield therapy.
Windshield therapy. I love that too.
We're naturally nomadic people. I mean, deep down, we're travelers, whether we're doing it spiritually, whether we're doing it physically. My travels manifest physically where I want to go somewhere.
Yeah.
I was like, I travel for my birthday every year.
Mm-hmm.
I just go out and get some windshield time.
Yep.
A little blacktop therapy, and you're driving. Just have the hum of the road underneath your tires, and nobody bothering me.
Yeah, I cannot wait. And it really has been a dream all of my life to be able to just get on the road and just figure this out. And I've always had this thing inside of me that was like, well, you're a woman, you can't do that kind of like there's a book out, Walk Across America. I want to say I can't think of the author of it. I read several of the books, but that was the first one, and he wrote it like in the late 70s, and he was a kid that was straight out of Connecticut, which is like the story. Everybody's out of Connecticut, and they just go off and whatever. But he was hiking across America, and he was just like, he had a tent, and he would just stop in places. Well, you can't even do that in the United States anymore.
Yeah.
Everything is owned, fenced. You're not safe to just stop.
They refer to it as stealth camping.
Yeah.
And I didn't understand the concept of stealth camping until I started researching hiking the Appalachian Trail. And
I looked it up. I think you were the one that told me that word, stealth camping,
Yeah.
and I started looking it up.
It's an interesting concept. I mean, it's sad because, I mean, who wants to think of the United States being entirely privately owned, where there are no places where you can just, I think I'm just going to pick up right here and just, chill out for the day.
Or even if it was all privately owned back then, and is privately owned, that you get in trouble for it. Like, people will run you off.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, just that kind of freedom. I mean, I'm not saying I disagree with, like, I don't even know how I feel about it politically, in all honesty. But the truth of the matter is that I'm just like, oh, the freedom to be nomads.
Yeah.
That, like, you're right. There's an innateness inside of us. It's just like, wanderers and.
Yeah. It's that gypsy nature that's inside all of us. And whenever you get out there, and you have a bunch of different types of hikers. You have your weekend hiker, which is what I consider myself these days. But then you have your serious hikers that are long trail hikers that do the Continental Divide Trail, that do the Pacific Crest Trail. You were discussing the book Wild a couple episodes ago, and that's that movie with Reese Witherspoon, where she hiked. That was a PCT. That's the Pacific Crest Trail. Bill Bryson wrote Walk in the Woods.
See, I didn't want to get... Okay, so the guy that wrote the one I read, Walk Across America, is Peter Jenkins.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. And so Bill Bryson wrote Walk in the Woods. They made a movie with Robert Redford and Nick Nolte in it.
I've watched... I mean, I've seen every one of those movies. I've read most of the books.
Yeah.
If there's somebody that's done the pilgrimage, I watch that. Like, that's... who I am.
Yeah. I've got a whole bunch of books written by people that hiked the trails, and they decided just to write these self-published books. And it's like, you can't get there from here, and AWOL on the trail, which I think you'd enjoy. But you meet these people, and you realize it's kind of a kindred spirit.
Yeah.
When I attempted my through hike, and this was back in 2020, so I got on the trail before the pandemic. 8 days in, I broke my leg. And we were discussing this earlier, and you even mentioned it. It's like, says you prepare for things, but it's that thing you can't prepare for that's going to get you. And I broke my leg 8 days in, and everybody's like, "Oh, that had to hurt." I was like, "That wasn't the worst part. The worst part was I had to hike 8.5 miles on a broken leg to get somewhere where I could get a ride to a hospital."
Holy shit! Okay, first of all, how did you break your leg?
It was early enough in the day. Well, before lunch, I was coming down off a mountain. I was hiking with this brother and sister duo, older couple. The brother, he had actually through hiked 2 years prior. And so his sister Sharon was actually attempting her first through hike. And she's roughly my mother's age. So she's very matronly and sweetheart. And we've been together for like 3-4 days at this point. So we kind of knew each other. And so I was hiking with her because you hike your own pace. And we were slow poking it. We were on pace. And so we were coming down off the mountain, and it rained every day. Every day I was on trail, it rained. It was, early March, so there was no sunshine. And as we were coming down, she lost her footing. And when she lost her footing, I grabbed hold of her backpack to hold her up. And when I grabbed hold of her backpack, my right, my right foot was in a crack,
Uh-huh.
and I lost my footing with my left foot,
Uh-huh.
and I twisted.
Ah,
And
wow.
then there was just I felt the pop,
Yeah.
and I didn't think much of it. I think, okay, great. I just twisted my knee.
Uh-huh.
There wasn't like instant pain. It wasn't a compound fracture. It wasn't anything like you'd see. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't
Uh-huh.
catastrophic,
Uh-huh.
but it didn't feel good.
Right.
And I sucked it up. I was like, that machismo,
Yeah.
that macho
Yeah.
man.
Well,
She,
what else are you gonna do at first too?
yeah,
I mean, like,
and Sharon. I didn't tell Sharon until COVID shut down the trail.
uh-huh.
Sharon hiked another 3 weeks
Uh-huh.
before I even told her I was off trail. She thought I was behind her somewhere,
Uh-huh.
but I didn't bother telling her that, yeah, I broke my leg. It was more severe than we thought,
Yeah.
because after it happened, I got to the bottom of that mountain, that little section,
Mm-hmm.
and her and her brother went on their way.
So, okay, tell me how this happened. You heard it, right? And
Mhm.
you knew it was hurt. Did you stop and then get going again and then get like
Once I got to the bottom of that, once I got down to the bottom of the mountain,
uh-huh.
where it leveled out, I say the bottom, it was not the bottom. But once I got to a spot where I could actually sit down, I sat down. And other hikers, it is not like people think you're out there and you're all by yourself. You're not. You might have a mile,
Yeah.
you might have a mile or two between you and the next group of hikers or the next hiker,
Uh-huh.
but you're not 100% alone.
Right.
And so, being the macho persona that I thought I was at that time, these two, Mel and Melanie, is cousins out of Canada that I had. There, one's a tattoo artist, and the other one was like marketing sweethearts. Both of them. They came up and they're, are you okay? I was like, oh yeah, I'm fine. I'm just taking a break. Yeah,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
yeah. And so they're like, okay, and went on their way. And then one of the other guys I was hiking with, Matt, he had a service animal.
Mm-hmm.
He had, suffering PTSD. He was a Marine.
Mm-hmm.
He's hiking the trail for recovery, for trauma. Just, he was out there doing this for himself.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he was hiking with his Rottweiler, Bodai. And Bodai is a sweetheart, had her own vest,
Mm-hmm.
had a first aid kit, and Bodai came up and over and just came bounding down. And then she went back, and then Matt came down. And he's like, "You okay?" And I was like, "No."
Yeah.
I was like, "No." And so I pulled my pant leg up. Matter of fact, the pants I'm wearing right now are the pants I broke my leg in. But I pulled my pant leg up, and he was, we were looking at it. He's like, "Oh, that's not good. It was swelling. It
Yeah.
was, I thought I just really, really screwed it up."
Right.
And so I started all the ibuprofen I had,
Uh-huh.
chugged some water, and it's 3.5 miles to the next shelter.
Yeah.
I still had 3.5 miles to walk.
Uh-huh.
And side note, never text your mother. I think I screwed my knee up when you're hiking in the mountains and you're not going to have reception.
Uh-huh. Right. No.
Because when you
Yeah.
do get reception,
There's 8,000.
yeah,
Yeah.
it just goes
Yes.
off. And
I
so,
just had a recent experience with my daughter where I didn't realize she was off grid
yeah,
completely, and I started freaking out, and like she had like 1,000 texts probably by
yeah,
the time she.
you don't think about that.
Yeah.
It's just one of those things. I was like, I didn't think anything. I was like, oh, I screwed up my knee.
Uh-huh.
Talk to you later. Boop,
Uh-huh.
gone. And so we hiked. We hiked to the next shelter, and spent the night. Well, I had 5.5 miles to hike to get to the town to
Wow.
get my knee looked at, and that was the longest day. But
Yeah.
I did meet a really cool guy, a trail angel as they're called,
Uh-huh.
Broadway Billy.
Uh-huh.
Um, he said for a case of beer, he'd drive me into the hospital.
Uh-huh.
It's a University of North Georgia is
Uh-huh.
where we were headed. And I was like, okay, cool. And I'm like, I'll buy you a case of beer. I used to do that for my friends. Buy me a
Mhm.
case of beer for drive me somewhere. I thought he was going to wait till we were like not on the road to drink it.
Oh.
This isn't. Then it dawned on me, this is North Georgia, and this F-150 pickup truck he had, I don't know how it had Oregon plates. The registration was expired. You couldn't open the passenger side door from the outside, and he is rattling down these hills drinking a beer. And I was like, I appreciate it. He even got me a hotel room.
Uh-huh.
He made sure I was taken care of.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's you meet those kindred spirits, and that's the best part about traveling.
Yeah.
And like I said,
I can't wait. I really can't.
You're gonna have a great time.
Yeah.
And it's what you're doing is a completely different subculture. in the hiking and traveling part is like that the van camping
Yeah.
and the stealth camping where it doesn't look like anything other than a truck, a
Yeah.
Suburban,
Yeah.
but it's so
Yeah.
much more.
So I'm doing that, and then so I'm not going to do any. Well, we'll probably do a little bit of hiking when I get up to Michigan. We're going to go to the Sleeping Bear Dunes. That's a state park, and it's got hiking trails. So I'm sure I'm to do some hiking there. I love to hike, by the way. So that, like I said, talking to you about all of that, it's like I just want to learn from people that have done more. I want to do some sectionals. I would like to do that kind of thing. I would love to do a pilgrimage too.
But
I,
I remember you had mentioned something about wanting to do a section hike of the Smokies,
mm-hmm.
and I'm like, they have a Firefly Festival in North Carolina.
Uh-huh.
That's they're the Smokies, and
Yeah.
I was like, that's one of my things. Is like I want to do the Smoky Mountains. It's 78 miles
Uh-huh.
of the Appalachian Trail is through the Smokies,
Uh-huh.
and it starts at Fontana Dam, but they have a Firefly Festival
Yeah.
because it's one of the only places in the world where the fireflies
Fireflies are at. Yeah.
they're synchronized.
Oh,
They flash at the same time.
that's cool.
And so, but
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I love it when people want to do stuff like that because it's not common these days.
Yeah.
And people
That's
like,
all I want to do. Like
yeah,
really, like if I could just and I am trying to figure it out with the podcast and the Patreon and the writing of the book, I'm trying to figure it out, this kind of grounded wanderer concept where it's like, and if you think about somebody that has a farm, well, how are they ever going to leave the farm? Well, I want to figure out how to be the grounded wanderer, somebody that can be that grounded, but also still have this ability to be like a nomad and a
yeah,
gypsy when I feel like it, or when I can make it make sense, and figure out how to do that because it is in me to, and I want to meet people and I want to have experiences, and I don't love like being inside a lot, and
yeah.
so I still want to meet people, right? So you're describing this thing where you just like go along and you're hiking and then you meet new people and then you get to know those people and then you become best friends for a few days and you
Yeah.
just keep hiking. That sounds like heaven to me.
Well, when you figure it out, you can teach the rest of us how to do it.
Yes,
It's
exactly.
like I had a farm and I still did this.
That's what I want.
Yeah.
That's my goal in life. I swear.
Well, I'll buy the book.
And we had met, you had mentioned too, we had met at a beer tasting, but then we also met at a friend's like farm to table. She was doing some wild game farm to table stuff, hung out there, but mostly our initiation or conversations have been
At the cafe.
Cafe
Yes.
Calypso. And so everybody that knows Lee knows him from Cafe Calypso, most likely
More
around
than
here anyway.
more than
Yeah.
likely, yes.
Yeah.
I am the familiar face behind the bar. But I mean, I love coffee.
That's what I was going to say. You've
It's-
talked to me about coffee before.
I've gone to classes to learn how to extract espresso, and I went to Kansas City to learn how to work on the equipment. I've gone to a lot of like coffee festivals. I went to one in San Antonio. I've been one in Seattle. Next year, it's actually in Chicago, which is the big one. The United States Coffee Expo is in Chicago next year, and that's where, yes, there is a national competition for baristas.
Mm-hmm.
I will never compete. However, Onyx Coffee Labs, the crew I mentioned to you earlier, they do compete in the Roasters, Brewers, and Baristas Cup. But
why won't you compete?
Oh no,
Yeah.
no, they're serious. Like I am
Well, what's in the competition? What do you do?
I am a hobby coffee person. In the barista series for the U.S. Barista Championships, oh god, I'm probably gonna get this wrong, and there's probably my friends that I'm gonna tell to listen to this are gonna be like, "You're so wrong about what's in there." You have to make 3 drinks. I believe it's 3 drinks. The first one's a cappuccino, or no, the first one's like pull a shot of espresso. And you're explaining to the judges. It's a panel of 5 judges. I think 3 of them judge. I can't remember because it's so intimidating just to watch these guys compete. And the guys and gals that compete in these competitions dedicate hours.
It's like the Olympics of coffee.
Yeah, yeah. And they know everything about the beans that they're preparing. They bring their own beans, which I think is not cool. One year they had a barista that he was using coffee beans that were like $60, $100 a pound. He was freezing them in liquid nitrogen before he ground them, because whenever you freeze the beans and then you grind it, you get a more even fracture for the bean.
Okay.
And so it gets an even extraction.
Okay.
All super serious. I had to call my algebra teacher from junior high and apologize to her for saying I would never use algebra in my life. Because I walked,
you and every other person on this planet.
I walked into that barista certification class, and it was just parabolas drawn on dry erase boards, and you're solving for X because you got this temperature of water and this amount, this weight of espresso beans and these pressures and 9 hemispheres and millibar. I mean, what is this? I was like, I just want to learn how to make coffee, bro. That's it. But you have the barista deal. So you pull a shot, you make a latte or a cappuccino, and you're explaining your coffee to the judges at the entire time. You're explaining what you're doing, which I can't do that. And then you make a signature drink. It's your signature drink. It's a drink that you serve at your cafe that nobody else has. And that's when the cool stuff comes out.
Oh, yeah.
That's whenever the chef is let off the leash, and it's like, this is whenever you get to do what you want to do, and it's all timed.
Okay.
You have a certain amount of time that you have to do all this in, and you're judged. And that's just
so
the
if you could make your drink, what would you make? Like,
I am so boring. I am a coffee person.
Yeah, well, okay, I am too, by the way. Like, I'm like straight up coffee. But if I'm gonna have, like, if you're gonna, like, what would you do?
It would probably have to be something. It would have to be something just smoky and nutty, with a little bit of spice to it.
Okay.
I make a drink that Erdal, the late owner of Cafe Calypso, he would make me a drink called a B52 whenever I was a kid. I have duplicated the flavors, but it was very much like a cream soda, just a little bit richer. And they stopped making that syrup. And then he actually came up with an adequate representation of it. And then just a few years ago, I was messing around, and I came back across, I came up with the mix.
Yeah.
And so now I have a couple customers that they'll come in and ask for a B52.
So what's in a B52?
It's proprietary.
Okay.
I'm just kidding. Yeah. No, it's if they get the B52 the way I make it, it's 3 shots of espresso, half and half in milk, and it's caramel, toasted marshmallow, hazelnut, and Irish cream.
Nice.
And but it's not. I know it sounds sweet. People are like, "Oh my God!" You can hear Wilford Brimley in the back. Diabetes.
I was thinking to myself, that's a lot of sugar. I don't know if I can handle that.
Yeah, it's not. Those are just the flavors that are in there. That's not like full 1 ounce pump of each. I mean, you're not getting 7 ounces of flavoring in there, but it tastes like it's like cream soda kind of creaminess and just rich and smooth. And so I'll make them, they'll come in and ask for a B52, and they'll get a B52 Italian soda, or they'll get a B52 latte.
So you have a coffee truck that you're moving towards being in a coffee truck.
Yes. Yeah.
Doing your own thing.
Last March, I was coming back from New Mexico, and a buddy of mine out of Austin was selling their coffee truck. Had an espresso machine in it already, had an ice machine in it already, had refrigerator. Ended up buying the truck. And, it'll be called Gulf Roast Coffee Company. I already, have all the paperwork and everything squared away. I'm working on, this past week, I mean, it's an older truck, but the kitchen area was built in 2018. And so all the equipment's got brand new suspension and plumbing and everything, but and it's just coffee. I'll have some finger foods and some other things like that, biscotti and stuff like that. But I'm a coffee guy. I was like, but it's going to be fun. We're going with the 1980s, 1990s theme because I'm a product of the 1980s and 90s. Bright paint job and geometric shapes and fanny packs and
I love it.
All things Miami Vice. But it'll just be me.
That's
It's
awesome.
just going to be me to start with.
Yeah.
I love the community that's starting to come around, and I'm hoping here in the near future we'll get some of these cafes and to get together and start having latte art throwdowns on a regular basis.
Oh yeah.
Excuse me. I do not do latte art.
No.
I did when I first started.
Like making little hearts and flowers and
I am so bad at it. I will gladly judge, but I am so bad. My hearts look like corgi butts. It doesn't even look like a heart anymore. I used to be able to do a
Like a
tulip.
goat's ass.
Yeah, I used to be able to do a tulip in a rosette and all that, all
Yeah,
that fancy stuff.
lovely.
But yeah, if you don't use it, you lose it.
Yeah.
And one of my acquaintances is like top notch when it comes to that latte art stuff. But I'm with the way the community's coming, I think we now have like 4 or 5 coffee trucks,
Mm-hmm.
or trucks that are loosely associated or involved in the coffee deal.
Yeah.
A couple of them, I call them TikTok coffees, because they specialize. They've got really sweet,
Yeah.
the cool stuff you see on
TikTok coffees.
TikTok.
That makes sense. Yeah.
And so I call them TikTok coffees.
Uh-huh.
It's still good coffee,
Uh-huh.
but it's what the youngsters is like.
Yeah.
I'm familiar with people that come in and say, I would like a macchiato,
Uh-huh.
but they mean a traditional Italian macchiato. They don't mean a 32-ounce frozen,
Right.
vanilla latte with
Yeah.
whipped cream.
A moo latte.
Yeah. And so I'm, I have my customers come in and like, I want a Gibraltar. I would like a cortado, which I'm probably wrong, but I think they're the exact same thing. Itty bitty lattes. But I'm more on the traditional side because that's how I was trained.
Yeah.
Marcy and Erdahl started roasting their own beans. We have 14 or 16 different coffees,
Mm-hmm.
black coffees that we offer at the cafe. I love my African coffees.
Nice.
It is the greatest thing in the world. Malawi Mizuzu, to this, I will die on that hill waving that flag. It's a female-owned cooperative out of Africa. And a portion of the proceeds of ours goes to providing school desks.
Nice.
Into, that's what our broker does. All of our beans that we serve in most, I believe most of the cafes here in the city, but especially us, I can say with 100% certainty, all of our beans are sustainably sourced.
Mm-hmm.
Our brokers, they source these beans. They know their farmers. They know where they come from, and from seed to cup, they follow this.
That's good.
It might not be labeled organic because being labeled organic is essentially, even you've seen in the coffee community, it's kind of you're kind of sitting on the fence 50-50 on that.
Yeah.
USDA labeled organic is the equivalent of a surcharge using a credit card.
I'm not a fan, by the way. I don't know if you know about my feelings about USDA organic, but
yeah,
I mean, I purchased USDA organic because to me, that's more of like a vote to say this is an industry we want to change.
Yeah.
But in terms of being someone that actually would go for that certification, you're right. It's some money.
That farmer doesn't get that money.
Yeah.
No. It's just there. I mean, we've got Rainforest Alliance and elephant friendly and bird friendly. I could run down the list of some of the asinine.
Now we're going to add a regenerative to it, which, by the way, regenerative is what I actually do. But now we're going to add a certification that
I had to.
If Walmart can get it, it's probably not regenerative anymore.
Biodynamic.
Biodynamic, yeah.
I had to look that up.
Yes,
because it's more of a tea thing. But we've always, I mean, our brokers that we've dealt with have always been very serious about sustainability and providing their a good selection, a wide selection of sustainably sourced beans. And they've offered to take us, when we do the cuppings and stuff like that. But just because, just ask the cafe, where does this come from? And, give me a little history about it. Do you know anything about it? Like I said, our Malawi Mizuzu is a female-owned cooperative. We have a Mexican coffee from Veracruz region that's actually labeled Women Power.
Nice.
And it's another female-owned cooperative. Really awesome bag, by the way. It's got a nice floral wreath and a hand, and very colorful.
Nice.
But it's just ask the cafe, because your baristas, I can guarantee they're a lot like me. They love talking about their coffees.
They love talking about their coffees. They got. All right, it's time for us to do the random question of the week. So let's see. I'll let you here. Why don't you do it like this and let me draw this time?
Okay.
There you go. We got 5 here, and I'll ask you whenever I draw one out.
Looks like 4.
Or 4. Sorry. Okay, here we go. I'm going for this one. What would you most like to change in the world?
Oh my. What would I most like to change? The only thing that I could actually have 100% control over? Me.
Yeah.
I mean, I would ideally like to change this or that, but
Right.
really the only change that matters is the change that you do to yourself,
Yep.
because it's what people see.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I would change. Do I know if there's something I'd want to change about myself? Probably a little more humility.
Yeah.
Yeah, even my customers will tell you. I was like, next to coffee, I love talking about myself more than anything. But
Well, clearly so do I.
yeah,
So
but yeah, it's just growth and change as an individual.
yeah.
There is no higher. There's really no higher level or call than
Yeah.
that, because you it's you.
Yeah.
It's like, if you can look at yourself in the mirror and be
Mhm.
happy,
Mhm. Then you've changed the world.
you've changed the world.
Yeah, I have such a different like belief about what the world is in our universal consciousness of understanding what is the world, right? And so because I have this different thought process of what the world is an illusion to me,
Yeah.
right? So if that's the case, then there's nothing I can do to to actually change the world. I mean, I can make magical, interesting things happen in the world, but if I actually want to change the world, it's about my internal, like, spiritual interconnectedness with
Hmm.
the entire consciousness that created the world. And
Yeah.
that's how I'll change things.
Yeah.
And so, it's a big understanding to think about. And I think, I hope that after the pandemic, a lot more people like began to wake up to that concept that like the only change that can actually affect anything
Yeah.
is me. We were talking about politics and
Yeah.
how politics is almost pointless now, and for so many people, because it's an endless fight.
Well, and honestly, like you said, for the pandemic, for every one person that was upset about the pandemic and being locked inside, you had another person that was using that time to really examine. I mean,
Yeah,
where they are as a person, where they are in a
yeah,
relationship. I mean, where they are professionally.
yeah,
You know, there's a reason self-help books and personal growth like had a surge during the pandemic.
yeah.
Aside from us being bored out of our minds,
Right. Yeah.
you know,
Life coaching.
you know,
Yeah.
yeah,
All of that
yeah,
stuff.
all
Yeah.
those, I know so many people that life coach. It's just one of those things. I'm like, yeah, what did I do with my time? Sure as heck didn't do any growth. I was I was hopping around on crutches, but I saw it. I saw it in people, because they,
Yeah.
going into the pandemic, they were one way.
Yeah.
Coming out of the
Yep.
pandemic, you had to try not to be a different person.
Yeah. I was definitely one of those people. Thank you so much for coming out tonight. It
Well,
was
thank you.
such a treat. Thank you for going to the movie with me the other
Ah,
night.
it
I'm
was so
enjoying
good.
building our friendships. Lots of fun.
Yes.
Thank you guys all for joining me and Lee at the dinner table tonight. As always, I appreciate your friendship. And if you want to support the podcast, go over to dinnertabletalks.com and click the button support the podcast at the top there on the page where the notes and all the things like that. If you have questions about the podcast, you know how to get a hold of me. If you're listening to this on YouTube, please subscribe to my channel. And of course, you know that you can benefit any podcast by telling your friends about it, rating, reviewing, doing all those things to help us out. Thanks, Lee, for being here.
Thank you for having me. It was a fantastic time.
Yay.